everyone. I'm Dr. Cindy, a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and your host right now of the Positively Altered podcast. So I have an interesting burning question. How do you go from an excellent musician to an excellent integrative practitioner? And why is supplementation and laboratory work part of that? And what does that have to do with infections and how we take care of that? Okay, it was more than one question, and it's a big loaded question, but it's one we're going to talk about today with my guest, Dr. David Brady. So go grab something to drink and a blanket if it's cold where you're at. And we're going to be right back because my sponsors are really important. So we have to listen to a couple quick messages. And then we're going to find out, how do we get where he got answering all of those questions?
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? I'm glad you stuck around because my next guest has an amazing journey, one that I know always inspired me and continues to do so in my practice of chiropractic internal medicine. And I am super excited for you all to learn about his journey. Welcome, Dr. David Brady. I'm so happy to have you today.
Dr. Cindy, how are you? It was great to see you recently at a conference we were both at, and in Branson, Missouri, I think it was.
It was. And you know what? I am fantastic. So thanks for asking. We were like, passing, right? I think I was coming out and you were coming in, and we're just changing everybody's lives, one doctor, one patient at a time. So
yeah, cool.
Very, very fun. And Branson was it was a good town, I think, for, some non-medical reasons.
Yes.
So let's go back, right? So musician, right? Like, what did you play? What did you do? How did that start in your life?
Oh man, I've always been playing music. My brother is a professional musician. I come from a real musical family, and me, my brother and sister kind of grew up in these things called drum and bugle corps back in the 70s. We toured the whole country. I think I was in every state in the country except for like 3 or 4 by the time I was 16, so that was really cool. And then after that, we both went into playing in, more rock and roll music. And I was a kid that grew up on the Jersey Shore in the just the height of the New Jersey Shore music scene that launched, the likes of Springsteen and Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, and then Bon Jovi. And I actually played quite a few times with Bon Jovi's first band, Atlantic City Expressway, because a couple of my buddies were actual full members in the band. So I just kind of grew up immersed in that scene, and I've been playing music ever since. And I play a bunch of instruments. And in a lot of those bands in my early years, I was either playing trumpet, believe it or not, in the horn section, because a lot of those bands had full horn sections. That's why they were so just dynamic and energetic. But I was also always a drummer. So I played mainly drums in my professional life as a musician. But as you can see in the background, I play guitar and I play keys, and I'll play anything. I may not play them all equally as well, but I try to play them all. So, and I still play around Florida and all the beach bars and stuff like that. So it just feeds my brain. If I'm not doing it in some way, shape, or form, I just don't feel right after a while.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So I remember I have 3 kids and my daughter wanted to take drum lessons and I couldn't wait until she didn't wanna take drum lessons.
Yes.
That's so I give a lot of credit to, anybody who lived in the house with you growing up until you got good at it because,
My
wow.
parents, I'll tell you, we had drum sets and there was horn sections practicing in the basement, and God only knows what else. They were saints, I'll tell you.
So were they musicians that you got into that?
No, not real. My dad played a little trumpet when he was growing up, and he had one up in the attic, evidently. And my older brother, who's like 4 years older than me, found it at one point. You go scrummaging through your attic. He found the old trumpet. He started playing it, and he was like, it was one of these weird things. He was almost instantly a world class trumpet player. He's a virtuoso player. By the time he was out of junior high school, I think he played with everyone. Stan Kenton and Maynard Ferguson and Doc Severinsen. I mean, they all knew him. He was a kid prodigy, and then he's toured the world with everybody on trumpet. He's a great drummer too, but he was really, it's the weirdest thing I still ever saw. My brother like instantly had world class talent on a very difficult instrument. Not that he didn't work hard, but man, the guy's just got this weird channeling out of this world kind of talent. When I've met a couple of those people through my journey, being around a lot of world class musicians, and they're special when you run into them. There's something different about them. So
And
I
that
wish more
also
of it rubbed off on me. I was pretty good, but I wasn't as good as him.
well, I grew up with the piano, and my mother used to force me to take lessons, and I think to this day I've mastered chopsticks and clair de lune because I think everybody
Yeah,
learns clair de lune when they play the piano, and
yeah.
that's about as far as my skill set goes. So
You know
I'm
what,
I'm
though? It tells me that we all have it in here. It's just not everyone can access it. Like
Mhm.
certain people, the circuits open up, and it's almost like a channeling. And you see that even in like you see those savanti kind of people that have a lot of mental social challenges, but yet they can instantly play an instrument at a world class level or understand music at a totally different level. And you know some of these great musicians like my brother, they don't have the dysfunction part, but they almost still have that weird, they can access circuitry in their brains functionally that the rest of us can't. But I think we can, because you hear of those things where people, got in an accident or got hit on the head, and then they're middle aged, all of a sudden they sit down at a piano and they can play a piano. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. So the brain is so much more complicated than we try to make it, or than we understand it to be anyway. And it's got seemingly unlimited potential if you unleash it.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I've been concussed in my life a couple times, and I'm still not musically inclined. But
Yeah.
maybe the third one's the charm, and
Well, you
um,
can't say you didn't try.
right. That's true. Although I'm not going to fall down a flight of stairs on purpose at this point. I think
No.
we'll just, if the accident happens, we'll hope for the best. That's
Yeah.
for sure. So, okay, so music, right, which is awesome because it gets to be part of your life indefinitely. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, you jump forward 25 years, and you're the chief medical officer for Diagnostic Solutions Labs and for Designs for Health, and you're in private practice.
Yeah.
What gets you from music? Although I'm going to make a guess, maybe financial. I don't know what makes you go from music to medicine, and yet
Yeah.
music is medicine.
Well, I was doing music, and I really planned on kind of going that direction. I was in some really, really good bands, and I was in one that was, pretty on the verge of being pretty successful. And I had another friend, very close friend, who was in one that was, signed to a full recording contract. And I mean, it was just seemed like it was going. And I saw so many of these things just spin apart or fall apart for reasons that were out of control of the band or the musicians. It was all business stuff or bad deals or whatever. And I don't know. At some point, it just made me stand up and say, you know what? Um, I'm always going to play music, and if something breaks, great. But if not, I'm not loading trucks my whole life. Not that there's anything bad with that, but I have to figure something else out. And so I ended up going to school for electronics, more like vocational kind of tech schools, things for electronics. And I really liked it because I can kind of relate that to music almost in a way, especially as I was starting to do studio things and all. So I loved that. I was really good at it. I got really good grades in school, and which I didn't really going along through normal school. I didn't get bad grades, but I didn't get great grades because I was more worried about being in the band and being cool than all the other stuff. But then once it got real, and I'm like, I got to figure out something that I'm going to do, or I'm going to make a decent living, and I'm not going to be working as hard as my dad had to. And so I went to that kind of initial schooling and just excelled at it. So then I went back to university, and I got a degree in electronic engineering technology. And then I ended up working for a couple of really high tech companies at the time. And one of them was McDonnell Douglas, a big aerospace company. It's now, they've merged with Boeing. But at the time I was working with them, and I was like, great, I'm going to work with missiles and airplanes and all kinds of cool stuff for boys, like, or girls or whoever. But at the time, I was like, that's cool. And it ended up, I was in this totally other division, and we were doing some of the really groundbreaking work in computer aided design and manufacturing and engineering. So they were basically back in the 80s designing aircraft and things on computers and simulating them and doing all kinds of stuff with them that then was really high tech stuff. And it was so successful, they spun it off into another sort of division, and they did biomedical applications. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the hospital for special surgery in New York City, which is the premier orthopedic hospital in the United States, and helping the teams there use our equipment to design custom-made total joint replacements. So instead of off the shelf, like small, medium, large, hips and knees, which were very early then. It was the very beginning of total joint replacement. We were digitizing plain film X-rays and some of the earlier MRs and CT scans and things, and we were actually making custom anatomically appropriate implants for high-end clients. These were like most of the people these were put in were from the Middle East and cut the hospital a big donation check the next year. They didn't even charge them, I don't think. But it was really high-end, cutting-edge stuff. And we actually did the first wrist. So, when you think of a knee is just a hinge joint, and the hip is just a ball and socket thing, and relatively biomechanically easy compared to a wrist that has all those little carpal bones and have different planes of motion that have to be checked in all these different ranges of motion, but move in other ones. And so we did the first viable wrist, and we not only designed them right there, but they were actually manufactured at the hospital in a semi-sterile machine shop. So it was like from design to in your hand to put in the patient with titanium and all these inert materials that wouldn't be less likely to be rejected. So that got me really into biomechanics kind of engineering. And I really loved for the first time sort of applying my engineering mind to the human condition or the human body versus airplanes and missiles and things like that. So, I was working with orthopedic surgeons. I was working with biomechanical engineers. I was working with even physical therapists. I was working with all kinds of different providers, from measuring the patient to getting it in the patient to seeing how it performed and doing some outcome studies on it. So I decided I was going to go back to school again, and thought about going to orthopedic surgery. But at that time, there were too many orthopedic surgeons, and the AIDS epidemic was still in full blown, and it's a very sharp surgical thing, and there was a lot of fright and scared, and people, they were scared about it and things like that. So I actually had some orthopedic surgeons talk me out of it. I was going to go into PT, and I actually got into the first physical therapy graduate program in the United States, which was very hard to get into at the time. So it was the first master's level program because they were all baccalaureate trained. Now they're all deep, doctorate
Mm-hmm.
level trained, but it was the first step up. So I got into that, and in the 11th hour, I was talking to some of these PTs that I was working with and doing some of these volunteer hours to get into the school or to get into any program. And they said, "Hey, did you ever consider going to chiropractic school?" And I said, "Well, not really, but I always went to chiropractors growing up. My mom had a bad back. My sister had the bad backs ran in the family. And so we always went to the chiro, and they were just another doctor to us, like going to the dentist or the GP or whatever. I didn't understand the political divisions and the turf battles and all of that stuff that I was soon to be in for. But the PT said it because, at the time, the chiros were able to see patients directly. They were portal of entry, where
Mm-hmm.
the PTs were dependent providers. So you had to have a doctor, send someone to you. And I'm not a kind of cat that likes to be a dependent provider. So I ended up calling a few schools, and one of them, the school I eventually went to, was Texas Chiropractic College down in the Houston area. And I was living in New Jersey at the time, and they said, "You're in luck. We're sending our gait analysis track, like biomechanics team, up to the TAC meet, which was like pre-Olympic track meets that was happening in New Jersey." So I went by. I met a bunch of their professors, some of their students and interns, and they were doing really early multi-camera views and doing gait analysis and trying to get better performance out of these high-level athletes by doing biomechanical studies and then treating them. And that intrigued me. So I ended up going off to chiropractic school, thinking I'm going to go really more into biomechanics and eventually go into research and use my engineering and this sort of physical biomechanical medicine background. Well, I get to Texas Chiropractic College, and they have all of that stuff good, but they have all these very unique at the time for chiropractic schools. They had all these hospital rotations and all these different departments that you can go do with the medical students in the Houston Medical Center. And they had really a very strong nutrition program and even botanical medicine. Ron Grabowski was there, who was an early pioneer to bring like that nutrition component back into chiropractic. It had that with all of the old internal disorders docs and Michael Cessna and all those guys, but it kind of had atrophied a little bit and gone very neuromusculoskeletal. And now I was back looking at this stuff, and then I did my hospital rotations. I was like, no, I want to own this. I want to go into sort of lifestyle, nutritional, botanical, what now you would call functional medicine or integrative medicine. But at the time, it really didn't exist. And the modern naturopathic medical paradigm was just really emerging again up in the Northwest with Bastyr and National College, but it wasn't in Texas, and it wasn't on the East Coast. It wasn't anywhere else. So I kind of got this hybrid education at CCC, which was, half chiropractic, neuromusculoskeletal, biomechanical, but then it was heavy on nutrition. And then I did all these hospital rotations and really spent most of my time in internal medicine and even in neurosurgery rotations and all these really cool things. And then I stayed for an extra year and did the residency in internal disorders. Got the DAPC, right? And then got my nutrition diplomate. Then I said, oh, so then I'm living in Houston. I had my first practice. I was doing like half physical medicine, half nutrition, half functional medicine. And I was teaching back at Texas Chiropractic College, more internal disorders, laboratory diagnosis, physical exam, those kind of classes. And I was also teaching at the local community college, if you will, teaching like anatomy and physiology or something. And I said, you know what, this is kind of cool, but I really want to go back and go to medical school. So I did. So I went back, went to medical school, came back to the Northeast, kind of coming home to Connecticut, and did medical school, and then was always on teaching faculty. And I spent 23 years at the University of Bridgeport, starting off as a faculty member, becoming a tenured professor, then a director of their human nutrition program, then a dean of the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and then the vice provost, and then the vice president of the university. So by the end, I had a couple thousand people, reporting to me in many programs, and we had everything from conventional medical programs to integrative ones. So it was really this academic center at the time where everyone got along. We had dentistry, PA, nursing, and more conventional medical stuff. But we had a naturopathic medical school. We had a chiropractic school. We had a traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture program. We had like all this really cool stuff all rolled together in a full public clinic system that would deliver these services in an integrated way to everybody. So that was really cool, right?
It's
So
awesome. It's awesome.
that was like a big part of my career, and I got to train literally thousands of students and residents and interns across a multitude of provider types and disciplines. So it really broadened my perspective on how I approach things. And At the same time, all through that, I was very involved in the nutritional supplement industry. I had started many years ago just being sort of a lecturer, educator for Metagenics, which at the time was the biggest, supplement company in the
Hmm.
professional space. And then toward the end of that, I started helping in formulation and things like that. And then I went on to do that work, more formulary kind of product development for a couple of different entities, and then ended up eventually at Designs for Health. And at the time, it was a fairly small niche company, and now it's the big dog. So it's been a wild ride for over 20 years, like 22 years. I think I'm into my 22nd year as the CMO. And, we've developed and put out over 400 products into the integrative functional medicine space, and oversee clinical trials and the whole product development process, and the education process to the providers. So that's been fun being in the nutraceutical space. And then parallel to that, I was always in the laboratory space. So I worked a little bit with all the labs of in functional integrative medicine in one way, shape, or form. And then about 7, 8 years ago, me and a couple of partners who all came from that, functional medicine laboratory industry, and a couple who came from outside, more in pharma kind of contract research laboratory experience, we formed Diagnostic Solutions Lab to really bring cutting edge modern omics technology to the functional medicine space. So metabolomics, proteomics, genomics, and microbiomics, and how to mash them all together and extract the most value out of them. So that's really my concentration now. I've retired from the UB, from academic medicine, and I'm really concentrating on the laboratory and the nutraceutical side of things. But I still practice. So I still practice one full day a week and see patients.
It's great. So I've got a lot of questions for you, but I also have a couple thoughts.
Yeah.
So number one is I'm exhausted. So I don't know how you're still doing it because just listening to the journey, I need a nap. So that's the first thought.
Yeah.
The second thought is I think you stole my thunder because I think that spot you got in the physical therapy program was mine. I couldn't get in. I have a similar journey. Well, I
Yeah.
couldn't get in back in the day. It was so competitive because my grades were not that good.
They
At
tell
the
me to
same
get into that first master's program, which was at Rutgers University, in that PT, that it was actually harder to get in than medical school that year at Rutgers, at least.
Right? It was
So
amazing, and I
yeah,
was kinda told the same thing. They're like, "Why would you wanna go to PT school and be told what to do when you can go to chiropractic school and tell others?" And I went, "Ooh, I love to tell people what to do." So,
yeah,
that's how I kinda wound up as
yeah,
well, and I have a similar alphabet soup behind my name, so, some parallels in our journey and some
yeah.
not. But, you know, I have to ask the question because 'cause I'm curious what you think about this. You and I both started before functional medicine existed, right? Those 2 words put together. What do you think of those words? Is it the right way to describe what we actually do? Is there a better terminology? Like, I'm always interested because I'm curious how that sorta came to be that we're now functional medicine practitioners.
Yeah, well, I think it was really because of the profound influence of Jeffrey Bland. He was one of the first really dynamic, very smart people to go out and really start lecturing broadly about this whole kind of systems biology approach to complex chronic disease, right? That we're not just going to use this drug to treat the symptom, or this, this for that kind of medicine. It was more looking deeper, looking upstream, looking at the triggers, antecedents, and the propagators of illness, and to try to really take the legs out of a disorder, and he called it functional medicine, and his reasons were just that we're not about detecting and treating disease. We're about trying to determine levels of functionality and optimize function, right? So, but it was always a troublesome term, because in conventional medicine, they would tend to call things that are kind of fuzzy around the edges diagnostically functional disorders. Like IBS, for instance, was called a functional disorder, and that was sort of code in conventional medicine for, I think they're crazy. You know what I mean? So, which is terrible and wrong, so but the functional medicine movement got such steam behind it. And then it was one of the first organizations in the Institute for Functional Medicine to really coalesce and become a very, professional kind of organization that promoted education and certification and things like that. And it had a lot of, pretty prominent people that ended up associating with it. So I think a lot of other kind of people that were either into that kind of thing, or even other training entities, all were glomming onto that functional medicine name for the cachet of it. But they're not all functional medicine. There's all kinds of stuff called functional medicine that really has very little to do with the functional medicine matrix and paradigm when you really strip it away. So it's become one of those catch-all terms. But it's a good question, because I get asked this a lot by a lot of people, or I'm on an airplane and they see I'm working on slides or so. Oh, are you a doctor? Yes. What kind? Well, what do you say? Functional medicine, they have no idea what that means. Integrative medicine, they don't know what that means. So I don't care what you call it. It's just trying to get people with complex chronic issues that have been going on a long time better by trying to get to the root of them, and not being bound by a 6-minute office visit and an ICD-9 code on who will pay for what. But you're actually, I consider myself like a medical detective, a biochemistry detective, essentially. Right. So trying to get to the bottom of why people are the way they are and feel the way they are, and all the things attached to it. And I have no skin in the game on biases. I don't care what gets them better. I don't care if it's an herb, a nutrient, a drug. I don't care if it's a peptide. I don't care if it's stem cells. I don't care if it's a better diet or less stress or getting a divorce. I don't care. I just want to get them better. And if a lot of times it takes a combination of all those, many of those things.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, it's interesting. In my practice, I have what I consider this baseline, this place that I start with most patients. Yeah. And it's certainly, after a good history and physical, always starts with, with a couple different types of lab tests to give me that, what I view as baseline material. So for everybody out there who's thinking, okay, I'd love to get started, right? Like my symptoms have been here for a while, and it is complex, and we are all complex. Let's face it, at the end of the day. Where do you like to start with a patient that walks through the door? Do you have sort of this baseline routine that you look at?
I guess yes and no. I'd like to think that I really leave my agendas at the door and let the case go where it takes itself. And that obviously starts with a good history on the patient. What's going on? How did this start? What was all involved? What were you doing at the time? I mean, your family history, all of that balled up. But what is actually this constellation? Usually they come in with a constellation of symptoms, right? It's never easy symptom stuff. Someone usually figured that out before they get to me, because most of my patients come on referral more than anything from other functional medicine doctors. So they already come in with rattling bags of supplements and a folder this thick with labs, right? So really like to see where it drives me. But like you and like almost any doctor, we have some baseline stuff that we need to figure out, and that involves some very conventional stuff like just a normal lab, chemistry, a blood chem and a CBC and a thyroid panel and, some basic, maybe inflammatory markers and things like that. But then on the other side of the ledger, I probably my biggest go-to place would be metabolomics. So looking at small molecules, metabolomics, organic acids, things like that, which we do at Diagnostic Solutions Lab. at a very high, level with the latest technology. But and then probably after that, the most common thing I would do is like, because so many of the things I deal with involve gut issues, and so many things that functional integrative medicine people see, there's a gut component to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a lot of GI tests, with quantitative PCR, like GI mapping for sure. But not always. If the case has no GI stuff, it's not related, it's not autoimmune, it's not whatever. I don't test for the sake of testing ever. I only test if I think um, I need to either screen for something, hard rule something out. If I'm dealing with something that's more of a diagnosis of exclusion, or I got to rule the other stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or if I fundamentally think it would change potentially what I would do from a interventional or therapeutic standpoint. So I'm not a tester for the sake of testing. And I always tell people, I'll spend your money like I'd spend my money,
Right. Right.
because I'm really sensitive to that for people, because it's a big burden for a lot of them, and it's unfortunate that our system doesn't cover all the right stuff to do, but it really doesn't. It's just sort of catastrophic coverage. That's what I tell people to look at it as. If you have to be in the hospital for something, have to have surgery, that's when it's covering that. All the other stuff, if you expect that to cover your wellness, proactive healthcare, yeah, you got
Right.
another thing coming. Yeah.
I know it is a shame. The other area that you've obviously been significantly involved in is in the supplement industry. And, I think it's very unnerving for a lot of people out there in terms of what to buy, where to buy it, how to get it. Should I be getting it on Amazon or at the drugstore down the street? I'd love for you to speak a little bit about, just how do we guide people in the right place to look for good quality, good manufacturers? Because we all know, sometimes there's no way to figure that out as
Yeah.
the average person out there. And we don't all have access necessarily to a physician that can guide us. So, where can people start to get good quality stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question. First of all, you'll hear those terms all the time in the media and stuff whenever there's an issue. Oh, the supplement industry is unregulated. The supplement industry is not. Well, it's very regulated because we have the FDA and third party CMP, auditors coming through our manufacturing facilities all the time, right? And there's all kinds of compliance that you have to deal with. So what they're really saying is it's not regulated through the same laws and same pathways as pharmaceuticals are, nor
Right,
should they be, because they're a different animal, right? They carry much less risk. So you don't have the 3 trial phases and the, stuff that takes millions and millions of dollars to get through approval, because there's no intellectual property protection in the supplement world like there is in drug world. So it just economically it could never be the same. But there is shades of gray in the supplement world for sure. Just like automobiles, I tell people there's Ferraris and Porsches, and there's Chevys and whatever. I'm not picking on Chevy or whatever, but there's different levels of quality by intention, and it's not to say that the ones that are the Chevys or the Hyundais or whatever have no value and are no good. They're just made more with cost consciousness in mind, and to be the cheapest one on the shelf versus the best one you can possibly do. And this comes in a lot more with more sophisticated ingredients, or when you're combining things into what we call formulations, right? If you're just commodity buying vitamin D3 or you're commodity buying vitamin C, it's not that much of a difference between the Ferrari brand and the Chevy brand, as long as there's fundamental integrity in what they say is in the bottle is in the bottle. And that's usually the case at this point, if it's at all any commercially recognizable brand, because the consequences for it not being are grave. So it's cleaned up a lot in that way from 20, 30, certainly 40 years ago, where used to be, weightlifter people selling supplements out of the back of their trunk in California. It's
right,
not like
right.
that at this point. What I would say is, if they're buying them direct to consumer retail, like on an open shelf in a drugstore or something like that, I would generally tend to stay with the brands that are kind of known names. Your Solgars and your and Nature Made and things like that. They're not sophisticated. They're nuts and bolts supplements, but generally, what it says on the label is what's going to be in the bottle. Okay, within
Right.
tolerance. But when you're talking about much more sophisticated design supplements that are made for specific clinical conditions or medical conditions, and they're usually these combinations or formulary things, then the pace for that in the industry is set by what we call professional brands. So they would be brands that are really designed and were intentionally, originally at least, designed for recommendation by doctors or other healthcare clinicians who are trained highly in nutrition to recommend to their patients for specific things. So now the lines have blurred between professional brands and retail because of Amazon and all these other things and these other channels, but it's still the sort of the high bar level for supplements and the way they're designed and quality controlled and manufactured really still resides with those professional brands. So if you see, any of the professional brands, honestly, Designs for Health, Pure Encapsulations, Thorne, Metagenics, Orthomolecular, down the line, they're generally doing a decent job of what they're doing. Now, you can like one company's formulations better than the other, and you can like the fact that Designs for Health always puts out really cool, novel, unique supplement formulations, and then a bunch of those other companies I just mentioned basically copy them. But we won't talk about that. If they would
We
give
won't
me a
edit that out, David. We won't edit it out. I promise.
royalty on it, it would be great. But no, I'm poking fun at my colleagues, but no, all those professional brands are basically doing a good job, and you
Yeah.
can
Okay.
find them on channels direct.
So let me ask you, and I stock over 600 different products on my shelf, so there is not one company that I use exclusively, but I am curious, what is your favorite formulation then from Designs for Health? Let's see if I'm using it.
My favorite one, it's like asking me like my favorite kid, like my favorite child, they all have
Well,
their
who's your favorite, David? Come on, spill.
yeah, I would never say though. But no, I would say, and these are legacy products, but they've just proven in the market to be so effective, and doctors love them so much. And this one has been copied by everybody, but it's called GI Revive. It's a
Mhm.
barrier integrity, GI mucosal, and immunological manipulating product, if you will. So GI Revive, Inflammatone is like a natural NSAID. That's a great product. And another one that stands out is something called Neurocom capsules. It's a central nervous system relaxing, but not hypnotic. Like it doesn't sedate you, but it can really calm that overdriven anxiety, hypervigilance, like panic attacky kind of thing that a lot of people have, particularly when they have IBS and fibromyalgia and long haul COVID and things like that. So it's a really interesting combo using botanical and nutritional medicine and some nutraceutical component with something like GABA, but it can really calm the central nervous system by using adaptogens that are not stimulating, which a lot of adaptogens are. So
Right.
kind
Well,
of
I'm
cool.
proud to tell you that I love GI Revive as well, although, this is my opportunity to put in a plug and a question for some other flavors.
Yeah. Well, we are actually in a reflavoring of it right now. And we're going to do some others. And we have the capsules in it, but to get the payload, you need a bunch of
Yes.
capsules to get the job done. And then we also have IgGI Shield, which is more of a serum bovine IgG with an N-acetyl D-glucosamine, which is a
Yes.
part of the magic of GI Revive too, because it blocks immune amplification, stops the receptor docking of the antigen into the T cell. So it's cool.
Awesome. No, I love it, and I'm proud to say that we do absolutely provide those products, and patients are getting really well. So thank you for all the great work that you're doing on that level, both on the lab side and on the nutrient side. You know what? We've got to take a quick break to get to our sponsors, and then when we come back, some loaded questions for Dr. David Brady. We're going to learn a little bit more about him on maybe the non-medical side and see what his
Okay.
answers are. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. stop, hit that follow button now, and spread the love with Positively Altered. Thanks to our sponsors. They're super important to me. So I'm really glad you hung around, took a listen, and we are back with Dr. David Brady. All right, David, I have some rapid fire questions that aren't always rapid depending on how long the answers are. So we'll see. But are you ready for me?
Yeah. Go
All
ahead.
right. Now, I know you're down in Florida, so you don't get this, but assuming you have to travel into some snow, if you could make snow any color except white, what would you pick?
Blue.
Blue. Why blue?
I don't know. It's got that aquatic, frozen kind of, and I love blue. Blue's my favorite color.
You know, it seems to be the most popular answer.
Yeah.
Just saying, if we were to take a survey, blue is more ticks than anything else. So, all
Yeah.
right. So, you know, you're
I
amongst
almost said
friends.
purple, but blue seemed to just be a little safer pick.
Okay, I would push you toward purple. I
Yeah.
think you should change your answer.
Okay, purple. I love
Okay,
purple.
good. All right, good. It is purple. So we just moved the tick into the purple category. I love that. I actually don't like blue, David. So I'm glad I got
Oh,
you to change your mind.
there you go.
I'm a big
Purple for
fan of
you.
purple. All right, purple it is. All right, good. If you could be an Olympic athlete that is going to win a gold medal, what sport would you participate in?
Oh, the downhill skiing.
Yeah, like slalom or what?
No,
Like
downhill, the fast
just
ones,
just
where they
straight
wipe
downhill.
out in, like terrible accidents. Yeah, just because that.
No tricks, like no backflips, nothing, just
No,
straight
just
downhill.
downhill, old fashioned, like Franz Klammer. Why World of Sports when the guy wipes out and flies off the shed and all. Where I'm dating myself, but yeah, that's the downhill.
And do you ski?
Yeah, I grew up skiing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right.
I
So
grew up in the Northeast, so
it's kind of a
I'm
comfort thing. Okay, that's fair. One drink, sweet, sour, or strong. What do you pick?
sweet, sour, or strong.
Hmm.
Oh my god, I guess sour.
And what would it be?
Um, like a whiskey sour kind of thing.
Ooh, all right. That's a good one. See, we should have
Oh, I
drank on
don't
the
drink
podcast.
much at all, but yeah,
Yeah. All right. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. Okay. So whoever they are, I'm still trying to figure out who they are in the world of everything. They
yeah.
say that you should find a person, dead or alive, that you would love to have a meal with in order to learn something or have a conversation. I actually could care less who that person is. I want to know what meal you're sitting down to eat if you had a choice.
Oh well, my motto and a couple of my friends I grew up with motto is always "Give me lobster or give me death." So it would have to be lobster at Don Pepe's in Newark, a great Spanish Portuguese restaurant with the way they do it and everything. It's great.
I love it. Are there any sides or it's just straight lobster?
No, it's really, really big sea bugs, lobsters, but broiled and with drawn butter. And then they have the size of these, they're like potato chips, but they're real potatoes done the real way, potato chips, like in the kind of Spanish Portuguese way. And then some vegetables, bunch of vegetables. Yeah.
What vegetables do you pick?
Whatever they pick, whatever they make is great. I
There's
like all that.
nothing you won't eat.
Oh, I'm sure there's something I won't eat, but I eat pretty much most vegetables.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. Now,
The things I won't eat are not vegetables, but there are some things I am a staunch hater of, like mustard and mayonnaise. I'm known for that. Yeah.
mustard and mayonnaise?
Yeah. Either one,
Okay.
signal in isolation or together. That would be the month horror show for me together. Yeah.
Okay. So ketchup is acceptable. Barbecue
Yeah, I
sauce.
don't eat much. I don't eat French fries much, but every once in a while in an indulgence, then maybe a little ketchup. But as I've gotten older, much less ketchup, much
Okay.
less condiments in general. I don't know what that's about.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Were you the condiment kid? Like, you see these kids, right, that they don't really eat French fries, they eat ketchup with the occasional French fry in it?
Not really.
No.
No.
So they were never your thing.
No, actually, I grew up, like I said, around the Jersey Shore. We were oddballs. We used to take really good French fries and put malt vinegar on them.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
fish and chips with the malt vinegar. Or
Okay.
in the old Jersey diners that you'd go late at night, you'd get the big, wide French fry, like steak fry things, and with gravy, with brown gravy, believe it or not. Sounds disgusting, but it's really good.
It does. And I always thought vinegar was more of a Canadian thing. No?
Yeah, they do it too. But malt vinegar, I think it's from the English fish and chips tradition of the malt
Okay.
vinegar that kind of came over.
That's fair. All right. Actor, singer, or dancer. You can excel at one. What do you pick?
Singer.
And what would you sing?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, my own music. How's that?
Oh, I love that answer. I love that
Yeah.
answer. All right. Real quick, last chance. Any dirt on Bon Jovi you can share with the audience?
No, he just rescued someone off a bridge or something in Nashville. It was going to jump or something, so that's pretty cool.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and yeah, I mean, he married his high school sweetheart. They're still married, so how can I dog on that guy? You know?
Listen, and that was our 80s growing up, right? Now I'm dating myself. That was our music. So, all right, good news. We can't dish on Bon Jovi, at least not in a bad way. So it's good to hear. All right, so here's the thing. I'm going to put you on the spot here with my very last question, but I'm going to ask you, can you pull one of those guitars out of the back and take us out with a little bit of music, Dr. David
Oh my
Brady?
God!
What do you
Watch,
think?
it won't be in tune at all, and you're going to see my Zoom attire here.
I love it. No judgment, David. Absolutely zero. Just for fun.
This is an old Yamaha Black Label from the early '70s. Very nice guitar.
All
Actually
right.
made.
So as you're playing, here's what I'd love. Share with everybody, how can we find you, follow you, learn more about you? Maybe you can put that to song. I don't know.
drdavidbrady.com, drdavidbrady.com.
Super
Yeah, we'll
easy.
go a little bit. I mentioned Spanish or Portuguese music, so we'll go with a sort of a popular music, but from that inspired by that.
I love it. Everybody, this has been, oh, you're supposed to keep playing as I do the outro, David. Come on, let's keep going.
On the dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair.
This has been Dr. Cindy.
You know it. You know the
Oh,
song.
trying to interject. Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. One of my favorite things today was actually just getting to spend a little time with you, Dr. David Brady, hearing some awesome music. If you want to learn more, come check me out at drscindyspeaks.com or shoot me an email at hello at drscindyspeaks. Dr. David Brady, it has been an absolute pleasure. I hope everybody out there, as a result of these minutes that we've been able to spend together, have been positively altered. All right, David, continue to take us out, and I'm going to let you finish.
Oh my God.
Come on.
Here, we'll do the same band.
All right.
Rolling down the road, trying to loosen my load. Yeah, well, you got it.
Yeah, we got it. I'm waiting for the Dr. Cindy theme song, David, in your free time. So let's get to work on that. All
All
right,
right.
everybody. Have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time on the Positively Altered podcast.
Bye bye.